and this is the REDTIGER USB-C hardwire kit. And on this video, I'm going to show you how it works in preparation for installation. And as always, I place a link in the description down below to this kit in case you need to get one. But before I get started, I do want to point out that this is the new REDTIGER hardwire kit. This is what the older hardwire kit used to look like. So if for some reason your hardwire kit happens to look like this, I have made another video for that. I'll put a link to it in the description down below. The easiest way to tell them apart is this right here. Notice that this has a black cable and it has color cables, and also notice that the ends are very different on the old one versus the new one, and I'm going to show you why the new one is tremendously better than the old one before. And the kit is going to work with vehicles that use 12 volts or 24 volt systems. Also, let's look at low voltage protection. That means that this kit will turn off when the battery gets low enough to prevent it from being fully discharged. And if it was installed on a vehicle with a 12 volt system, the cutoff is going to happen at 11.8 volts. If it was installed in a 24 volt system, the cutoff is going to happen at 23.7 volts. Now let's move over to the wires that are going to go to the fuse box of the vehicle. And there are 3 of them. Each one has a different color and each one has a different function. And all 3 of them have to be connected in order for the dashcam to work correctly. And the first wire is yellow and has been labeled B+. This wire needs to have power all the time, even when the vehicle is off. Next up is this red wire, which has been labeled ACC. This wire needs to have power only when the vehicle's key is in the accessory position or when the vehicle key is on the on position. And lastly, we have this black wire, which has been labeled ground, and ground is normally a metallic surface on the body of the vehicle. Normally I find a bolt that I can loosen up, slide this underneath, retighten the bolt again, giving me ground. So to recap, B+ needs to have power all the time, ACC needs to have power only when the car's key is on the accessory position or when the car is on, and this guy right here, ground, needs to go to a metallic portion of the vehicle, which we know as ground. And one of the most important things that I do before installing the hardwire kit is I check the labels against the color of the wire, and I check that against the instructions that came with the hardwire kit to confirm that these labels are in the correct place. It is not uncommon, I have seen this before, where a label was mixed up. For example, imagine if this V+ label was on the red wire and if the ACC label was on the yellow wire. I'm effectively going to connect this backwards to the vehicle, which could cause some issues. So by checking it against the instruction manual, I can confirm what the function of the wire is going to be and that the label matches the color of that wire. And now that we know what B+ means and ACC means, where on the car's fuse box am I going to find B+ or ACC? Well, the only way to find out is to directly test the fuse box, and I have made another video showing that process of how I find ACC and BAT on any vehicle. I'll put a link to that video in the description down below. Now you may be wondering, well, how do I actually connect these wires to the vehicle? We know this one is going to go to the vehicle's body, but these 2 right here, how do I get them to go into the fuse box? Because notice the terminal, that doesn't go into here. And there is a solution for that. Let me show you what that is. And this is the solution. It is called a fuse step. Now notice that the fuse step does have a receiving end on here, so I can take that fuse step and I can connect it to the end of the wire, effectively now having an end that can be connected to the fuse box. I'm going to go ahead and position that in here, and now I can make the connection. Now the kit includes 2 baggies of fuse tabs, and the reason why it includes 2 baggies of fuse tabs is because we know there are 2 ends that are gonna need it, the red one and the yellow one. Also notice that they included different fuse tab sizes, and that is because a vehicle could potentially use a specific fuse size. Here there's 4 of them. This is known as the standard fuse. This guy right here is known as the mini fuse, and this guy right here is a low profile fuse, and this one is a micro fuse. So if my vehicle uses mini fuse, I'm gonna use a mini fuse tab. If my vehicle uses a full size fuse, then I'm gonna use a full size fuse tab. So it is important to use the correct fuse size to make sure it fits the vehicle correctly. And while the kit has included 2 sets of these fuse tabs in the most common sizes, there is a fuse out there that is not as common, and that is this guy right here, which is called the Micro 3 fuse, and that requires its own specialized fuse tab. Notice how different that is. So this is the only fuse fuse size that if it happens to be on your vehicle, it's not going to be included in the hardwire kit. However, I place a link to this fuse tab in the description down below in case you need one. Now let's talk about the vehicle's fuse box. Sometimes there's gonna be empty spaces available that I could potentially use. Sometimes those places could potentially have ACC or could have B+, depending on which power type I'm looking for. And now I can insert the fuse tab into that empty fuse location to make the connection. However, it is possible that all the fuse spots may be taken and now I don't have any place to insert my fuse tab on. And here's where fuse tabs have a very interesting feature, and that is this space right here. And what that space does, it allows me to remove the fuse from the vehicle, insert it into that space so it looks like this, and now I can place the fuse tab into the fuse box of my vehicle. And here you can see how I have effectively installed two fuses into one fuse spot by using this fuse tab. Now notice that the top fuse is the fuse that came with the hardwire kit, and the bottom fuse is the fuse that I pull from the vehicle. But there's one more important thing to know about fuse tabs, and that is that they are sensitive to orientation. What do I mean by that? Well, here is a normal fuse, and a normal fuse is not sensitive to orientation. I can install it in this direction or I can install it in this direction and it's gonna work out okay. However, a fuse tab is only gonna have one correct orientation. It's either gonna be installed in this direction or it's gonna be installed in this direction, depending on the vehicle. And the only way to know that is to probe the fuse box of the vehicle to identify which is the side that the fuse tab should be installed facing to. And I have made another video where I covered that process in more detail. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link to it in the description down below. And for instructions, they have included this tiny little booklet, and I mean tiny because this is small, but it is legible and shows you how the connections are to be made and has nice diagrams, including what would happen if some of the wires were to be connected incorrectly. I wish this was a little bit of a larger size, but it is better than not having instructions at all, or worse, sometimes they have included instructions, but they are very vague and they are not in color. So this is what I consider a complete hardwire kit because they have included a set of fuse tabs for the ACC wire and a set of fuse tabs for the B+ wire, again in different sizes, so I can pick the one that fits my vehicle fuse size. And now that you are familiar with the hardwire kit, you may want to see what the actual installation process looks like on a vehicle. I have made another video showing that in great detail. I'll put a link to it in the description down below, along with a link to this kit in case you need to get one. If you found any part of this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button to support the channel and stay tuned as I have a lot more dashcam reviews coming up. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.